there we are.
Look at that. This is the closest I came to was 6:59 and probably seconds, but that's okay.
Good job.
That was the best I've ever done. What are you drinking there, Yael?
I made myself a bourbon with some soda.
Wow, she's a serious one because she said to me,
Cherries.
"Is it okay if I drink before the show?" I said, "Before, during, and after. You're gonna need to drink, right?"
I'm very nervous. You know, I need some liquid courage.
This is the after-hours show.
That's right. Oh,
All right, so why don't we do the intro? Welcome everybody who's tuning in tonight to another episode of Police Off the Cuff After Hours. My name is Mark DeMeo. I'm your host. I'm here with my partner, in all things law enforcement, the very handsome Bill Cannon. What's up, Bill?
Doing well, doing well. Do you believe the pretty girl? I can't even say that. I'm sorry, that showed my age. I can't say the pretty girl. This pretty lady that I have on the show, we invited to the show. And she's got brains too. Look, she even showed us her books in the background.
Yeah, it's I color coded them during quarantine. Do you like that?
I love it.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool. Why don't we introduce her, Bill, our guest tonight? She's coming to us live all the way from, where are you, Yael?
New York City, the dangerous, mean streets of the Upper West Side.
Oh, yeah, they're getting bad. Our guest tonight, she's coming to us from the dangerous mean street of the Upper West Side. Her name is Yael Bar Tur. Did I say it right?
Close enough.
Yael.
I listened to it too.
Tur.
I looked it up and I listened to it, and I still. She's a digital strategist for law enforcement, as well as the private sector. She's got quite the business going on there, and we're excited to have you here tonight.
Thanks for having me. I feel like I've made it. I'm like on this super policey podcast, you know?
You're on your way. You're definitely on your way.
I feel like I fit in.
People beg us to come on Police Off the Cuff. And,
it's nothing but up from here.
We're not below taking bribes either. You know?
You got no place to go but up from here.
That's
All right, let's do it.
So tell us a little bit about what it is that you actually do. What is a strategist? A digital strategist?
Digital strategist. So, first of all, I guess a little bit about what I did. So between 2014 until earlier this year, I was on the job, as you say. I was a civilian director at DCPI, and I actually ran social media for the NYPD. So when I came in, thankfully, the police commissioner back then, Bill Bratton, was very kind of open to social media, and basically came in and decentralized all the communication. So if you can imagine DCPI, very kind of top-down, buttoned-up communications, we went from that to...
Yael, let me just stop you for 1 second. Mm-hmm. For our fans, they don't speak cop lingo, not all of them. DCPI is an acronym for what?
It's the press office. So
like Deputy Commissioner of Public Information.
That's right. So before 2014, it was very very buttoned up, very much only one person speaks. It's a police commissioner. And basically when we came in, we decentralized the communication to fit the time. So every precinct in the city got a Twitter account, later on a Facebook page. They still run them today. And we really kind of let the precincts communicate with the people they serve directly. So I did that until early this year, and now I'm a consultant. Actually, when I left the job, I was thinking, I'll do social media consulting, but not necessarily for law enforcement. I don't really want to, only do that for the rest of my life. But everything happened in June with George Floyd, and I really found myself diving right back into it because it's kind of where, where my heart is, to just help cops tell their stories.
So you're like a consultant for other police departments?
Yeah, police departments, people that work with police departments, okay. Anyone that needs to tell the story of law enforcement or speak to law enforcement through social media.
It's very important, as you know, that's because it's your field, to get the story out quickly, especially like in police shootings.
Yep.
Where there's video, but sometimes I think we try to acquiesce to the community too fast. Mm-hmm. Like. Look, there's that shooting. I forgot which state it was, where the perpetrator is seen shooting at the cop, mm-hmm. and they released the video, and the community's still not satisfied. So then what was the purpose of it?
Well, you said two interesting things here. I'm going to start with the end, actually. So the community still not being satisfied is something that we can't really measure, and a lot of times we think social media reflects the people, the voice of the people. And as a social media consultant, I'll tell you exactly the opposite. Social media is not this kind of free-for-all utopian place where every voice counts. It actually really does, put a spotlight on the negative voices. So we're always going to see the sides that are not happy. We're always going to see the sides that are extreme to one place or another. So, it's hard to really tell if people are happy or not happy, people are supportive or not supportive. As for kind of what you said, giving into the will of the community, I think there's a middle ground. And at the end of the day, officer safety comes first and policing comes first. So we're not in it for the likes. We're not in it for the view. If you want 1 million views, then there's a lot of things I can tell you to do, but they won't be appropriate for
police off the cuff wants 1 million views. What should we do?
Well, I was gonna say they're not gonna be appropriate for you. Go stir up some drama.
Mark has to take off some clothes and start dancing.
Yeah, you might get banned. but honestly, if you start shit, I'm sorry, this is a podcast where you're allowed to curse, right?
You can say whatever you want.
Okay.
No Yiddish.
If you go really extreme, you cause controversy, then you'll get probably more views. But that's not, we're fortunate as law enforcement that we're not in the business of that, right? We're not trying to sell a product. We're trying to show a positive representation of who we are, and sometimes people like it, sometimes they won't. That's fine.
Well, it's like when warrants. Remember when warrants? So I think it was a couple of months ago. They made that arrest on the street.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. It was textbook police work. But the public and the savages in social media didn't like it. They didn't like the way it was done,
And that's a great example, Bill. And that's actually where I really think we need to meet people in the middle, because you see it as a cop, just like when you see a good shooting, right? You see a good shooting and you say, well, this is textbook, this is good shooting, but all the public sees is a shooting, or all the public sees. So it's not that I would ever recommend to a client, hey, don't do police work because people aren't going to like it, but rather, what are you going to do to set the stage for that and to kind of minimize the impact? A lot of it is damage control too.
Well, politicians always use the expression, they say, everyone likes sausage, but no one likes to see the way it's made. And it's the same is true with policing.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be safe, but sometimes policing is ugly.
Yep. No, it's true. Awful, but lawful. And somebody said, I don't remember who said it, but one of the best lines I heard about communications and community relations is that as police, you have to invest in the bank of public trust, because you're going to withdraw from it from time to time. From time to time, you're going to do things that are awful but lawful, or you are going to do things that are unlawful, because you have 36,000 police officers, and every once in a while somebody's going to do something wrong. So you always have to kind of invest in these relationships, a lot of which are happening online. And when something does happen, whether it's something you can defend or not, that blow will be a little softer.
Mm-hmm. Well, Bill brought up a good point, because he brought up the timing of releasing the footage that they had and how it didn't really make a difference. So on the side of just because we have such a fast media cycle now, I think you have to do that, but I think you can't expect, like you said, that it's going to change public opinion at all, because at this point right now, it doesn't matter what the person that was doing prior to getting shot by a police officer was doing. It's just that they got shot. If they're a person of color, it doesn't matter. Shouldn't have happened. Every single case that they bring up, is it like, look at Breonna Taylor, for example. Now all of a sudden, I don't even know if the picture was doctored or not, but they have her, holding a firearm. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you can trust those pictures. It's didn't seem to get like that much attention that I thought it would. It's floating around on social media, but that's something that, you'd say to yourself, all right, maybe what they're saying is true. It doesn't seem to sway anybody who's already made up their mind, though.
Yeah, but again, we're always getting a very skewed view of how people think about the world. when we look at social media. And we tend to overestimate, and I do it myself too. We tend to overestimate how terrible and strong the other side is, whether the other side is pro-police or anti-police, where in reality, most people kind of meet in the middle. And there's a great website that I really recommend everybody go to that I have no affiliation with, so nobody's paying me. And it's called The Perception Gap, I think it's called. If you just Google The Perception Gap, and it shows you, basically asks you a series of questions. It identifies you, let's say it identifies you as a Republican. So it asks you a bunch of questions about, what do you think liberals think about police? What do you think liberals think about the flag? And what it shows you without a doubt is that you always think that people are more extreme than in reality they are. So we have to remember that too. And we look at social media all the time. And I just wrote a blog post about it. We have to remember that it's not real life. It's just a selection of opinions. Also, too, you mentioned, you used the word liberal there, which if I had that questionnaire in front of me, that's a difficult situation, because if you're not given the word the left, then it's a tough thing, because even though they snuck underneath the Democratic Party there, it is an extreme part of the party. So that's a different way of thinking. I wouldn't think, like you said, about the flag and just what my perception of a liberal used to be. Mm-hmm. Yep. But when it comes down to the core issues, support for police is still high. Support for police funding is still relatively high. Sure, those things fluctuate, and there's definitely been an impact on, the last few months. We can't deny that. But I think, in reality, if you get off social media and you talk to people around you, a lot of times it's a lot worse than you think. Not to say that this stuff doesn't exist, but when we're in it all the time, and that's part of my business too, is kind of to, like, I don't want to say deprogram, but like remind people, hey, you're on social media all the time. It's almost like, I don't know, like you're working in a factory, you're inhaling all this like smoke and shit. You need to, remind yourself to go take a breath of fresh air. Do you look at social media? What's that? You have social media accounts? Do you look at stuff on? Yeah, of course. So I just wrote a blog post, which I'm happy to share with you guys, that basically talks about how when I left the NYPD, I started opening my own business, and I told, I was consulting with a guy I know who's kind of a social media guru. And I was like, listen, I don't want to be on social media. I've gotten trolled for working for the NYPD. I'm Israeli. I work, I was in the IDF. I got trolled for that too. I'm going to be like behind the scenes, kind of the social media person who's not on social media, right? And he basically told me, kind of looked at me and said, get over it. So you do have to put yourself out there if you're trying to reach people. But it can get very, very difficult and very ugly at times. So you need to protect yourself.
Well, Yael, when you were saying before about so much of social media is negative, that's true. You stay on Facebook for a while, and you better have this suicide hotline on speed dial.
Facebook? Yeah. Talk about Twitter.
Twitter, all these people. But my point is that a very small percentage of people are putting their opinions out there as if that's the mainstream opinion. Mm-hmm. And that's what's dangerous about social media, is that, for example, defund the police. A very, very small percentage of people want to actually do that. And I don't even think they really realize what the hell that means. Mm-hmm. I think to a lot of these people, it means, take $1 billion and give it to social service programs. Yeah. And then as they start getting robbed every day when they take the subway, they're like, oh my God, I didn't mean that, Yeah,
and when you look at research, for the most part, the research shows that most people, and this is consistent across racial demographics too, they don't want to defund the police.
Right.
The problem happens when decision makers make decisions based on social media, and that's where we have a real disconnect. Because, and I've seen it happen on the job at times too. So something happens on social media, boom, blowing up, trending, #1 on Twitter. The whole world is talking about it. What do we do? And a lot of times, the answer is take a deep breath and figure out, what your constituents actually want and what the right thing to do is, and not just what.
Well, a good example of that is that the New York City Council passed a law without knowing what the hell they were talking about. And what I'm referring to is the diaphragm law.
Yeah.
They didn't consult anyone. They didn't consult any police experts. They didn't consult any physical force experts. They just did it on their own asinine initiative without realizing what that meant. And now a lot of them being interviewed after the fact are like, oh my God, I didn't know that that's what I voted for.
Yeah. And ironically, I think you guys know better than I do that, the more you disincentivize officers from putting their hands on people, the more likely you are to end in a fatal interaction, because you're gonna use your firearm. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's a crazy world we live in. I don't want to pass judgment on it. I will.
I'll pass judgment. The city council, a bunch of jackasses in this city. Anyone that would vote for that, they should be removed from office. All of them, a bunch of morons.
So politicians are under that pressure from social media. And what I'm trying to tell my clients is, it's not real life. And just because something's trending on social media, it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. It doesn't mean that the people have voted and said, this is the direction we want to go.
Could I give you a perfect example?
Please.
I always wonder about how many, it's almost like when something new comes out or something's going to hit the media, it's everybody's holding their breath to see, okay, what's wrong with it? And all it takes is a couple of people to write something on the opposite side of it. And they're the ones that are going to get the most attention. For example, Gal Gadot playing Cleopatra.
My girl.
Yeah. She's Israeli or Israeli. Now, I'm wondering to myself, how many people are really making a big deal out of this? Or are we just focusing on 10 people around the world that decided I'm going to go the opposite direction?
I don't think the studio executives are losing a minute of sleep over it. But the problem is and you see it sometimes in organizations, like it happened in the New York Times. And I don't know if you were following, this is kind of like, a little inside baseball, but there's a woman who was a editor in the New York Times, Barry Weiss, who resigned after being bullied by her coworkers. And she's fairly liberal, but she's also somebody who kind of calls out other liberals. And basically, she pointed out the issue of junior staffers, I guess, being very active with their demands and going to social media. So this is a world that we don't know. I mean, you guys are much, 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 much older than me, right? Okay, but
we don't want that pointed out.
But we're neither of us are in the generation where you take your grievances to social media. Right. But the younger people are, and they're taking their grievances against their workplace to social media. So like I said earlier, judgment aside, what I tell my clients, this is reality. This is the reality we live in right now. We can love it, hate it, whatever, complain about it, but we need to make the best out of it, because if we just bury our head in the sand and be like, I'm not going to put anything on social media, I'm just going to communicate with people through, a community council meeting, then you're going to lose.
But Yael, the scary thing for me and for people from maybe my generation, I'm a baby boomer, is this group think that if you think differently than the group, people go against you in a vicious way. Mm-hmm. It's almost like I've seen things online where kids are taking online classes, and one kid had a Trump poster behind, and they told him to take it down. What if he said, no, I'm not going to take it down?
Yeah. I mean, that's true. It's a new age we live in where, hate speech.
People defining blue lives or the blue line as racist.
Mm-hmm.
Why is someone else allowed to define that? No, it's not. It's meant for pride in police, mm-hmm. and reminding people that cops' lives matter too. Why does someone get to define that as, oh, that's racist? No, it's not. It's not how it's intended to be. But someone's going to define that, and then we got to be like, oh my God, we won't have the blue line hat anymore, or the blue line this, or the blue line that, because someone was offended by it and defined it as to what they wanted it to be.
Yeah, the question I think for police departments is not why this is happening or how do we change these people's minds, but more, we understand this is a reality right now. It's not going away. How do we make the best out of it and put out a presence there so that people understand what police do? And like you were saying about the chokeholds, that people get a better understanding of police work. And I find that because it's so contentious and because it's so angering, a lot of times, not just police departments, a lot of people tend to, go hands off and say, okay, I'm not going to participate at all. But we can't afford to do that, because in the meantime, our story is being told for us by other people.
Look, there were a lot of cops on the job when I was on the job that were empty suits just because they didn't want to do shit. Now everyone has an excuse not to do anything.
Yeah, it's
I'm not taking risks. I'm not getting arrested for making an arrest the proper way,
Yeah, we can't say that, you can say what you want about social media, but you can't say it hasn't influenced policing, because it has.
No, it absolutely has.
Yeah. So how do we get out of this?
I want the job of the person that gets to delete all the negative comments that go on the precinct websites.
We don't. Can I tell one of my favorite stories is this was like a long time ago. I think it was the CO of the 110 was Ron Layson at the time, and this is right when we launched the precinct program. And one of their cops had cancer, and he had to go through chemotherapy, so he lost his hair. And what they did is they all sat down, all the cops, and shaved their heads. So they tweeted a photo of the CO of Ron Layson shaving his head. And it was really beautiful, touching. And they said, why? And the first comment was like, "Fuck you, NYPD."
Uh-huh.
So,
yeah,
that's just the world we live in right now.
It is.
We have to plow through that.
You mentioned Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about, you can't really promote stuff on Twitter, which is usually what I use social media for. But Twitter's another animal. Like, I know a guy who just lost a gig to make $80,000 a year doing some on TV, just an info, like what is it, a course, teaching a course on something for a TV channel. And it's not a lot of money, but still, for a comic in New York City, $80,000 to bang out some work during the day and make you money comedy at night, it's a great gig. He lost it because he posted something on Twitter over a year ago, and it was he was basically commenting on somebody else's tweet where they used the N-word. So he wasn't even using it, and he didn't even say he didn't use the N-word. He said N-word. The other person did. So it just goes to show you, I don't even understand why he's worth it. I know you're saying you should stay engaged, especially if you work in the media, but to put up anything that is emotional in any way is absurd right now.
Yeah, especially for comedians. And there's been a lot of talk about that, about what is comedy today, and kind of pushing the limits and things like that. I was just watching this Vice News article about people who book college comics for campuses, and it's really difficult. I think a lot of legendary comics would probably be rolling in their grave right now. But you're right that I understand when people say, why is it worth it? And what I always recommend to people is always start with your goals. So what are your goals? Let's say you're a stand-up comedian. My goal is to reach more people. My goal is for people who book gigs to notice me. My goal is to show myself as a professional comedian. And you always have to start with that, and you always have to keep those goals in mind. So it can't be your diary. It can't be your joke book. Gone are the days where it's just like, dear diary, here are my thoughts on Twitter. We have to be a lot more calculated than that.
I'll give you a perfect example. No matter how much somebody else's post or something that's posted annoys me, and sometimes I go through the trouble of actually, I'll always delete it, because I don't want to get into that thing about arguing about politics or something like that. Yep. My post, or like what I posted today, I found the picture. I just saw it somewhere else, and it was of one of those little houses, You know, the little house, the tiny house.
Okay.
You know, the TV show Tiny House?
Oh, yes. Yeah, okay.
Well, some 13-year-old made one, and it's
in one right now. No.
So yeah.
Yeah, I live in a New York City studio apartment. What's
my tiny house is on top of somebody's big house. No, on the bottom of somebody's big house. But what I posted was, it was a joke. It was, what's the difference between your parents' backyard shed and the tiny house? Drapes. That's it. That's it. It's just drapes. One person's mansion is somebody else's tiny house. You're convincing your girlfriend to move in, and at first it's really romantic. Look, this will be our own place. It's a tiny
But that can't be offensive to anyone, can it?
No, but that's my point. It's like, that's what I put up. I put up jokes.
Yeah.
That are just jokes. Then there's not a target to it. I'm not looking to make some type of political point.
Yeah.
It's not worth it for me. I don't.
Yeah. And when you engage with someone online, I would always recommend two things. First of all, like you said first, you got to ask yourself if it's worth it. Because, and I've done it before. I'm not like, I've learned from experience. Someone will say something stupid on social media and I'll be like, oh, feel great about myself. And then what happens? The whole day I'm stuck in this cycle of
wasting.
So you have to ask her, first of all, am I willing to commit to this?
I know.
And second of all, you have to say, am I talking to this person or am I talking to people who agree with me? Because if I'm talking to people who agree with me, I'll just say something snarky and mean, and that person will feel like shit, and the people that agree with me will like it. But if I actually want to have a conversation or want to educate somebody, you have to be like more respectful. And you have that that's a nice thing about social media, is you're behind a keyboard, so you can write respectfully while like freaking out privately.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but then on the other side of the coin, there's all these social justice warriors that become 7 feet tall and 250 pounds behind the keyboard.
Yeah, but we're not going to, we're better than anyone who wants to resort to personal attacks. And trust me, like I've been there. I've had I've had people troll me on Twitter. Apparently the Venn diagram of people who hate the NYPD and hate Israel is like perfect overlap.
Same, yeah.
So it's happened to me from time to time, and I'm sure it will happen again. But it's very tempting to sit on the keyboard and tell everybody what I think about them. But at the end of the day, I'm not just talking to them. I'm talking to the world. So you need to kind of maintain some composure.
Yael, did you do your 2 years in the Israeli army or no?
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Mm-hmm.
I knew I was something about you. You're like, oh, I don't know what happens.
You're right.
They don't probably sing that song when they march in Israel, though.
No, we don't do a lot of singing.
They don't sing. That's what they sing here,
No, I don't remember any singing.
I had to
think your weapons pretty good with weapons, a 45 caliber, semi-auto, and right?
Sure, basic training. I remember cleaning them. That was a pain in the ass, but
taking them apart is the hard part.
Taking them apart. We had to take them apart and put them back together, which is a skill I've never had to use since.
I had an incident where I got beat up pretty bad on Twitter. That scared the hell out of me, because I was on Comedy Central on the nightly show, and they were doing the Sandra Bland story before she died, before she committed suicide. And so I was the cop comedian on the show, representing, I guess, what would be the right. And obviously the whole show, we wrote jokes the whole day, the day before for it. And then I went out there and basically did it, and then she died, and they got ugly quick, man. I mean, like, I got stuff like your family dying and all this shit. Like, I didn't have nothing to do with it. I was just the guest comedian on the show, but
yeah,
it's bad. It's scary too.
It's hard. It's scary. It affects you because it makes you dig your heels in deeper to what you think and what you support. But
I chickened out right away. I was like, "Fuck that! I'll change my opinion right now." I didn't mean any of it. I wrote the jokes.
Well, did you see Bill Burr on Saturday Night Live?
I watched it on YouTube. That was great.
But it was amazing to see how the audience reacted to his jokes, because when he started talking about cancel culture and things like that, the audience was like, are we supposed to laugh? Like, so I think I think being a comic right now is harder than being a cop.
Yeah, because everybody's scared to have an opinion other than themselves, and it also depends. First of all, that audience is not nearly what it's social distancing audience, and they're wearing masks. So you to listen to the laughter from the audience is not a good indication. They should find a way to fluff that up too, for all late night. I mean, if the freaking stadiums can use crowds cheering, put the freaking soundtrack in. Who gives a shit? You know what I'm saying? Because I looked at it too the same way you're looking at it. And that's one thing about Sebastian did it when he was hosting, I think it was the MTV Music Awards. He went after this cancel culture, and then Dave Chappelle destroyed it. Mm-hmm. Bill Burr did it before. He did it again. The comedians are fighting really, really hard. But it seems like they're fighting an uphill battle because, like you said, social media, and then what you read, you're only reading. Nobody. I shared Bill's set on my social media, and I just did it because I thought it was great. But I thought it was great because of what he was saying. I didn't do it on Twitter, but I heard Twitter was giving him a negative grade on that set.
Yeah, Twitter leans very left. Facebook leans very right. And if you look at the top 10 most viewed Facebook posts every day, or more shared Facebook posts, they're usually 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10, they're right wing. And with Twitter, I don't have the stats, but I imagine it's similar, but the opposite. So both of these are skewed. Both of these don't represent,
Well, Facebook is an older crowd. Facebook is like if I talk to my kids about Facebook, they're like, they never go on there. They do
Instagram, TikTok,
and the other one, Snapchat a lot.
Snapchat, yeah. So it's important to remember, and I see a lot, and Bill, we spoke about this over the phone a little too, that I see a lot of cops kind of get into, they spend a lot of time on social media, and it really represents a very negative view of the world. And I almost want to like pull them out and shake them and be like, listen, you can't sit and watch like videos all day of people like, talking shit about cops or interfering or resisting arrest and then go out and do your job, because it's just a bad like mindset to be in. I'm not saying these things don't happen. They happen a lot. But the question is, if we're watching 5 hours of that and then going to work, what kind of attitude are you bringing with us to work?
Yeah, no, it definitely would change your attitude. But the cops that are on the job today, I think they have it the hardest of any era in New York City history. They're wearing body cameras. There's cameras all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Phone cameras, walk people all. I remember in one of my my first arrest in citywide anti-crime. I was in the 4-4 precinct, and we heard shots, and we went toward the shots, and two guys came running at us with a gun. The one guy tossed the gun. I chased after him, and I caught him, and he squared off to fight me. And without even thinking twice, I just hit him as hard as I could over the top of his head with my gun and opened him up.
Mm-hmm.
He turned out to be the guy he shot two people. But if that video was on today, they would want to collar me more than the guy who just shot the two people.
Yeah. This thing has changed policing, I think, more than anything else. Again, we could sit around and talk about how terrible it is. It's also done, I think, some good things. I mean, I think body cams, when I was starting, everybody was resisting them. Now cops are like, they want them because they tell our side of the story. The question is, okay, how do we work in this reality? How do we have to understand that this is not going away. People taking videos of cops all the time. It's just going to happen. Right. So how do we reimagine policing? Sorry to use that term. But how do we figure out how to best do our jobs within this new reality?
I think they need more non-lethal weapons. I really do. I think they need, you can't always go right to the taser. You can't always go right to the mace. But like Mark and I did a demonstration on the bolo wrap, which I think is a great thing. Do you know what bolo wrap is?
No.
Bolo wrap is like a net that is shot at like an EDP.
Yeah.
And it wraps the person up. And while they're all tied up like this, you jump them and you get them cuffed.
Yeah. But you have the guy in Rochester who they put the spit bag over his head, and I guess he threw up in the spit bag and died. And you know, all the media and everything was like, basically the cops choked this guy with a plastic bag. So, you know, sometimes it's about, not about winning. It's not about like, oh, if we just put it out this way, then everybody will love us. Yeah. But it is about kind of putting out the facts and saying, hey, this is why we had to use this. This is what happened, and kind of, you know, take it or leave it. But we're putting our facts out. We're putting the, you know, tactical decisions out as best we can and laying them out for people.
Yael, how many doctors or people in the medical field could stand being videotaped 24/7? How many dead bodies?
I don't think anyone denies that it's.
So how many crimes would we witness in the medical field?
Not only that, if a doctor in Arizona does something terrible, you know, should it affect the doctors in New York?
Right, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, and that's something else I say in my training, and I always feel like when I do training, I'm kind of like, you know, the angel of death, or the like, I bring all the bad news, right? I say, look, your cops are not only representing themselves, they're not only representing their agency, they're representing the entire profession. And if you don't believe me, ask yourself how your life has been affected by the death of George Floyd.
Right.
And it hasn't. Every police department, I don't think there's one police department that hasn't been affected in some way, shape, or form. So
that's an interesting point that you bring up, because if anywhere in the country, and there's other countries that are actually protesting George Floyd, but anywhere in this country, if a person of color gets shot right now by a police officer, there's going to be a riot over it, and you don't know which city it's going to happen in. It doesn't matter the city of origin or how their police are, because right now all police are bad, and all police should be abolished. That's what's being
on social media.
On social media and in the news as well, because they're the ones who fuel these stories about defund the police, and they fuel them so much that a lot of these people, like in Minneapolis, on that city council that signed that bill, defund the police, now they're like, well, I didn't really know what it meant. You know, I thought it was, I didn't take it literally, you know, and now they're in a situation right now where they're going to have to backpedal and figure out what we're going to do right now.
Yeah, and I think
either did the New York City Council realize what they were signing when they voted for the diaphragm law? You know,
probably not, and probably not for other bills as well. I mean, that's the nature of politics, in a way. You know, I think what I'm trying to figure out is, how do we rise above this, in a sense, right? So how do we show, I always said when I worked at NYPD, I want people to see NYPD through my eyes, through the way I see cops. And you know how I see cops? As normal people, some of which are amazing, some of which are, you know, whatever, but they're humans. And 99.9% of them came on this job to help people. And, you know, we have to tell that story, because the story is right now dominated by the negative stuff. And the negative stuff is always going to float to the top. It's always going to do better than the positive stuff.
Yeah, but you know, sometimes we're also victims of people saying, oh, he's a bad cop. Like, don't tell me Pantaleo was a bad cop. Pantaleo was a great cop. He was
the term bad apples, and I don't like the term bad apples, because for the same reason I don't like when people lump in, you know, Breonna Taylor and Eric Garner and Ahmaud Berry. These are very different cases, and you and I can, you know, we have the knowledge to kind of look into every case and realize, okay, these are very, very different incidents. But most people, they're looking at things at a very superficial level, at a soundbite level.
Well, you know, the Michael Brown case, they would have locked that cop up in a minute till the evidence showed them he was right. He was 100% right. But they were all right. Obama sent Eric Holder there to lock his ass up. And when the evidence was like, wait a minute, everything he said is proved by the evidence.
Yeah, but you have the evidence and you have the narrative.
Yeah.
And the narrative isn't, it's not going away.
Evidence is so overrated right now. It really is.
Homer Simpson says you can use facts to prove anything,
But as far as public opinion goes, because the mindset on some of these people that are protesting and rioting, it doesn't matter. They have another agenda, and every single shooting fuels their flame and gives them the authority to continue with the anarchy, to continue with the destruction. So the evidence doesn't really matter.
But let me ask you guys a question. So 36,000 police officers in New York City, right? Give or take. You guys are comics, so you have a life outside of the job. When you went to a club or you talked to other comics, how many of them actually have ever met a cop or sat down and had a beer with a cop or had a chat with a cop? Very few, right?
Well, I started a while ago, so I was the first. And they were always interested and always fascinated, always had questions for me. And at the same time, we're all being social, and it's a lot easier to be a gentleman or a gentle person when you're faced with somebody who's twice the size of you. You know what I'm saying? So you watch your mouth. Like Mike Tyson said, all these people on social media right now, they're lucky because they're behind the computer, and nobody's punching them in the face for what they're saying. And it's true. When you're in front of somebody, you get a different person. Now the same person is on their computer at home, and I'm like, yeah, how many years did I give you a PBA card? How many times did I get you out of a jam? Yeah. And this is what you're saying about cops right now. Yeah. So that is we're in a hysterical state. People feel like they have to post, because if they don't post, then you're not. I'm out of it. People are going to wonder why I'm posting. Nobody gives a shit if you post or not. Just shut the fuck up.
Well, actually, a lot of people have said that, their friends or people expect them to post. And if they don't post, it's a negative. So it is a very, very complicated, situation to be in. But that's why I think the more we can show people the humanity of cops. And by the way, humanity is not just, here's a cop like letting an old lady cross the street. Like, not that stuff. But I don't know. I'm trying to think, like, one of my favorite posts that I posted when I was at NYPD was like a few weeks before I left, was at a graduation. And I was just walking around and I saw this young black cop with an older white lady. And they were hugging, and I asked him, like, hey, what's the story here? And he said, I'm an immigrant from some African country, and she was my English teacher.
Oh, I thought you were going to say 90 Day Fiance.
What? No, she was a little older than him. But
so was the couple on 90 Day Fiance.
Which, by the way, is a fantastic show. But I thought it was such a great human story, and she was his English teacher. He didn't know English. Now he's a New York City cop. He just graduated. She came to support him. So I put that on NYPD social media, because we need to constantly remind people that, guess what? There are human beings behind these shields, and they have stories, and they have faces, and they have names, and
But Yael, something I just wanted to add something to that. You're right. That's very important as the PR face of the department, to put out a happy face. But I think it goes above and beyond when these cops are doing dances or singing songs in radio cars. And I know one of your posts went viral, had 1.1 million views. But there's also a professionalism. And you understand, being an Israeli military, the NYPD is all police departments are a paramilitary organization. And two cops singing over the megaphone or singing in the car, it's really not what I want to see.
Bill's not a good dancer. You don't want to see Bill dance. He can sing. Bill's a good singer, and he plays the guitar.
I'll tell you two things. The second one might upset you, but the first one, I'll say, you're not wrong. There needs to be a balance. And sometimes I see things that I love and things that are cringeworthy. And it's hard to know what the balance is, but you kind of know when people are trying too hard. So
Right.
I understand you need to do things respectfully, and you can still have fun, but you do it respectfully. And the second thing is, you said that's not what you want to see, but at the end of the day, we're also, we're trying to appeal to people who have different points of view. So we don't want to try too hard, because the last thing you want to do on social media, I've seen police departments do it, is try, that meme Fellow Kids with Steve Buscemi, who's like, you're trying to be like a cool kid.
Right.
That's the last thing you want to do on social media. But if you show a human side, it goes a long way, because people don't expect it. So I'll give you another example of a post that I did that I loved. I had a cop in Times Square. Forgot his name, but anyway, this guy's like,
gave his shoes to the homeless guy.
No, not the homeless shoe guy. That was before my time. But this guy, he's like textbook cop. He walks around Times Square. He knows everyone, all the vendors, the hot dog guys. This guy's like the typical beat cop,
he must
right?
be eating pretty well.
Anyway, he goes, he's walking down the street one day, and some woman comes up to him in tears. She's online to get tickets to Hamilton. She's a tourist from Ireland. And she's been online for 4 days, because it's impossible to get tickets to the show. And she's short $20. So what does a cop do? What most cops would do, most people, I think a lot of people on the job would do, it's like takes $20, gives it to her, never thinks of it again, right? She goes back to Ireland, writes a letter to the mayor's office with a $20 bill, which he probably would have gotten jammed up for if he took, but just kind of thanking this officer, thank you so much for your kindness. We're waiting online for 4 days, blah, blah, it made our trip.
Did de Blasio pocket the 20?
I don't know what happened to the 20. I never saw it. I'm sure it was donated somewhere.
Yeah, but
anyway, we put this story on social media, and it went it was international news. It went so viral. And the reason is because people don't expect that. They don't expect to see that side of cops. They expect cops to take guns off the street. They expect cops to arrest drug dealers. They don't expect a cop to see a woman in stress, a tourist, and just be like, oh, yeah, here's $20, whatever.
Well, here's the difference, because these I was going to say terrorists came out. These anarchists that they come from other cities.
Yeah.
They come, whether some George Floyd got killed in Minneapolis, they'll come to New York and protest. They're coming from other cities. So whether you're a cop of the month or not, you're going to get hit in the head with a brick. Okay, that's it. And now you're standing there, and you did all these good deeds, and you delivered a baby yesterday, got this guy's shoes, gave this girl $20, and the next thing you know, you're getting hit in the head with a brick.
Yeah.
So that's
you're also going to go to All Out if they need cops for All Out, and
like all these cops that are out there, they're facing an opponent that doesn't necessarily come from their command, from the city, so they don't have an affiliation, they don't care, and it's a black eye to everything, and that's why they do it. It's not about community policing right now. It's about keeping these people that are from out of town coming in and destroying your neighborhood and then leaving to go destroy somebody else's neighborhood.
Yeah, and again, that's why it's so difficult to be a cop. You can have the best day of your life, or you could try to save somebody, or you can intervene. Let's say somebody's being attacked and you intervene, and somebody takes a video of it, and then you're the bad guy. It's the reality we're in, and we can kind of sit around and it's easy for me to say, right? Because I'm not on the job and I'm not a civilian. But I think for cops, I understand the wanting to kind of dwell on it. But also we need to start thinking, okay, what do we do?
Well, we create laws. Look at that kid Rittenhouse. Now, one of the things that came up was he was not even from that town.
Mm-hmm.
So I know he came with his first aid kit, but he also came with an
AR-15
with a firearm. You know what I'm saying? So then therein lies the rub. You know what I'm saying?
So we lobby for laws.
There has to be laws that if you cross state lines to protest and you get arrested in the area doing something violent, then that should be almost like crossing state line dealing drugs.
It should be a federal crime.
But also, if somebody showed up with an AR in Times Square, he'd be shot dead, and I don't think anybody would,
Well, that's an interesting thing too, because so many states have different gun laws.
Yeah.
So they can just march with their AR-15s right to the governor's mansion and stand out there all day right next to a cop. That's got to be the weirdest feeling ever.
Yeah, and that's why they say, when people compare U.S. Police shootings, and they say why can't it be as low as in England, as low as in Norway, whatever. We have so many guns, and whenever a police officer is pulling somebody over, interacting with someone, there's no reason not to assume that they don't have a firearm on them.
Well, it's funny. They sent a whole contingent of NYPD chiefs a few years ago to Scotland to study their use of force.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to talk about comparing apples to watermelons? Come on, it's not even. There's no guns in Scotland. Maybe they have a stray shillelagh here and there, but there's no guns.
Mm-hmm.
So the deadly physical force thing is not even in the same league.
Yeah, but also too, they can handle themselves too when it comes to fighting. There are a lot of them that they are. They're all part. They fight like I watched the videos. I was studying it. Why do Bobbies not have to carry guns? And it's because they're very, very polite. First of all,
mm-hmm.
And the second thing is if it has to come down to it, they don't mind fighting, and it's not the end of the world either.
Yeah.
Fight. You don't have to worry about somebody taking away your firearm because you don't have one. It's just a fight, and then the cop kicks your ass and he puts you in cuffs, and then they're polite again.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, cops that are coming today in the police academy, they're a different generation, and they're also raised.
You're not even kidding. Oh man, they got water bottles with their name on it. Each get assigned a
water bottle with my name on it.
Yeah, but when I went to we didn't have water bottles. We just all used to line up behind the the old-fashioned the bubblers.
The water fountain.
You line up there like 60 guys waiting to just bend down and take a sip of somebody else's.
I would always talk to my friends that work in like startups and stuff, and they'd be like, "Oh, we get like pizza and sushi." I'm like, I have to pay $15 a month just to like have toilet paper in the bathroom. What are you talking about? So it's a different world, but also like the job. I think maybe it's a little controversial, but you need to like somehow adapt a little bit. I'm not saying coddle people, but you need to understand that you have a different workforce, right? So like, how do you train them so that they're not intimidated by these things?
Yeah. Yael, something, I mentioned it to you when we were on the phone, and Maki Haberfeld.
Oh yeah, Maki. You know Maki?
I know of her. I've heard great things about her.
She's a great professor from John Jay College, and they never ask her opinion anymore because she's a conservative. They just want to have all the leftist anarchists when John Jay does a symposium, But she said something that I thought was very profound. She said, in regards to community policing, she said, why should the community be allowed to tell you how to do your job? And when you think about that, that makes a hell of a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What profession lets the community tell them how to do their job?
Well, we're going into a situation. I watched the American West on it's a documentary by a series by Robert Redford and Jesse James. It was interesting. Forget it. I'll come back to that point anyway.
But yeah, you're saying, but Bill, you said, why should we let the community tell us how to do our jobs, which is true because, we know how to do the job better, but unfortunately we do still need the community trust because that's the only power police have over people, right? The only power of me coming up like in uniform to someone and telling you, hey, stop doing this, is you as a community member, your ability to like give me that respect and that authority.
No, I totally understand that, but like when go back to warrants, scooping that guy off the street.
Yeah.
Fuck you, community. That's how we arrest people. And look, no cops got hurt. He didn't get hurt, and he's under arrest.
And that's a decision that whoever's sitting at the top needs to make and needs to say to themselves, look, if we do this, we're going to get a lot of shit for it, but also we're going to get this guy off the street.
Even
and you measure those.
Even the mayor commented on that arrest, that jackass. He even commented on it.
He comments on a lot of things.
Well, if I could just go back to that one thing. What happened was he was robbing a bank, but he was robbing this bank, and somehow the time went by, and it just so happened that everybody was hunting season was beginning, so everybody was coming into town to get the supplies. So everybody was in town armed with their rifles, and they killed Jesse James's gang. And so my point is this: is like at some point, is the community going to get involved in all this? Is the community going to be the one who's going to assist the police officers and make the arrest in the future? Because you're talking about community policing and what can they do? Mm-hmm. At some point, that might be the case, especially in these places that are armed to the teeth. And now you're because right now, during this whole thing, the one thing people don't realize is people that can afford it have been stockpiling weapons. Mm-hmm. Stockpiling weapons. They've sold more guns this year alone than they've ever had.
Or people live in people who have money. They live in gated communities with private security, so they don't care.
Well, they do, but they also stockpiling. And one of those things about the gates is they got to start making better gates, because seriously, those 2 people that were outside their property, and those 9 people got let go. Mm-hmm. They charged with trespassing.
Yeah.
So now, since you let them go, the prosecution, you're leaving these people wide open. They're going to win their case anyway. Mm-hmm. There's no way they're going to lose their case. They'll take it all the way to Supreme Court. They're going to win there. Mm-hmm. But those people were defending their property. I don't agree with the way they came out, and it looked ridiculous. But
they were never in the Israeli army. She would have came out and she would have looked really professional.
Well,
in Israel we don't have a big gun culture, believe it or not. Once you're out of the army, you have to. And most people, isn't that last time you're going to see a gun.
Yeah, this country was founded on guns. It was the
only. It's a different, it's a different issue, and it has different meaning here. But that people have to understand the challenges and see the world through the police officer's eyes. And it's not necessarily going to turn you from hating police into being like a Blue Lives Matter supporter, but at least it will create some nuance, right? Because usually the less the easier it is for you to take a side. But once you get more information and you see okay, this is what police officers feel, this is what they're going through, it casts a little bit of doubt. And that's all we can hope for at this point. I'm not looking to turn these rioters into PBA, paying members. We're looking to give people insight into what policing is, who police officers are. So next time they see a video of a cop, they might be like, hey, maybe things are a little more complicated than they seem.
Well, one of the problems with this was that a lot of the politicians took the side of the rioters. Mm-hmm. And, Cuomo even made a statement. I side with the protesters. What do you mean? Who are you siding with? You mean the protesters or the rioters? Because many of them are rioting. Who are you siding with?
Yeah. Politicians are going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah, but look at what's happening. Look at what's happening with the exodus of LA. They're all moving. Everybody who, they're just moving out of there. So Gavin Newsom's going to be by himself there in a homeless state. And so is New York right now. New York City, everybody's abandoning. I work in the city. It's not just the commercial real estate, but there's like 38,000 apartments that you can pick from. If you want to rent an apartment, you live in the city. If you want to buy a co-op, now's the best time. People are bailing out in droves. All you got to do is weather the storm. But the question is, how long is the storm going to last? And if it's going to come back, because we had somebody on the show here not too long ago, another guest, and said this could take 10 years to fix. And you're a big Broadway fan. They just announced, Bill, I'm talking to Bill. No, I'm just kidding. Yael, you're a big Broadway fan. Yeah. And I just heard that they're not going to come back to June of 2021.
Yeah.
What the hell is that?
Really, really sucks. Yeah. What is think about all the people behind the scenes and the stage hands and the marketing and the security and the lighting guy. It's just
like 6,700 workers.
And that Broadway brings in the head of security for Schubert told me this. Broadway brings in more money every night than the top 10 New York sports teams combined.
Yeah.
So themselves in the millions of dollars for the city every night.
Look at what it does too. It kills tourism. The flight coming in for people coming in from all over the world to watch Broadway. The hotels.
It's going to be a tough. It's going to be a tough crawl out of this for the city. I get a little triggered, let's say, when people talk about how everything is great in New York, because it's not. I still love the city. It's my home. This is where I live, but you can't deny that things are different right now, and all you need to do is stroll through Midtown.
Well, let's say, for example, tomorrow you read, because it could happen, 3, 5, 7 shows are gonna just make a temporary move to one of these states that are wide open. Maybe there's an area there in Colorado we can go, or maybe we can go to Texas. And now Broadway's gone from New York because all the companies have moved over there. It's just a building. It's just a theater. They have no obligation to stay here. So they're saying they're going to come back in 2021, but they could have a deal to just move all this shit over to Texas.
Yeah, and I can't blame them if they do. People need to get their work done.
Well, people said, recently Jerry Seinfeld got into it with the guy from the 78th Street West Side Comedy.
Yeah.
About the guy from West Side Comedy said the city's not coming back like it did after 9/11.
Yeah.
I think it will come back, but it's going to take much longer, because a lot of people with the money, they're not coming back. They've had it. They've had it with this mayor. They've had it with this governor. They've had it with crime coming back after it was at the lowest it's ever been. And they're going to be like, I can work remotely. I don't have to put up with the traffic, the subways, the disgusting.
Look at all the real estate that goes to flagship stores. For example, on 57th Street, where rarely anybody walks in there. You're talking, who goes to 57th Street to go shopping? But those are the flagship stores for Fendi and Gucci and all these places. And they're just paying real estate there. But now you're going to take that flagship store out of there. So 57th Street is completely dead. And now, when are you going to put one back? Well, we need reassurances that it's safe. And Ray Kelly came out yesterday. I could have read it today, though, that he said the city is unsafe with Mayor de Blasio. And for the former police commissioner to say that the city's unsafe, that's just you're just opening the door for all these corporations and everybody who spends $1 in New York to bail out while they can, because it's going to be a while.
Yeah, it's going to be a while. And you also also with COVID, right? So if you're a tourist now from Italy or from Saskatchewan, you want to go on vacation, are you going to go to the most dense city in the world? So it is going to take some time. I see it in my neighborhood, on the Upper West Side, that's been kind of in the news a lot lately, because we've had a few homeless shelters open up here. And, at this point, I think both sides are idiots, because, there's definitely been a change in the quality of life, and nobody can deny that. Or, people deny it all the time. But, on one hand, you have people saying nothing's happening, everything's great. On the other hand, you have people saying, oh, I'm afraid to leave my house. And the truth is somewhere in the middle, right? So, I think everybody needs to get off whatever side they're on and just kind of meet in the middle and start working on solutions, as opposed to.
Well, they botched it up. And the worst part of it all is, if Biden wins, he's going to make Cuomo attorney general. And that means he's getting a reward for destroying this state. Yeah, that's basically what's going to happen. He's going to get a reward. He's going to get
you can always blame it on the mayor, right?
Well, that's what he does. He smacks the shit out of de Blasio all the time. It's funny, actually, because the guy deserves it, but he really goes out of his way to, it's like you have a puppy, and every time it acts up, you just smack it right on the snout. Stop it. And then de Blasio stops it for a minute, and then he keeps going.
Well, and whatever happens, whoever wins the election, I think it's going to be a rough few weeks or months for officers, and I don't envy anybody who's going to have to deal with that, because I think there's definitely going to be a lot of angst.
We're all going to have to deal with it. Well, everything is going to get screwed up for a while, especially since we have this election right now, where an outcome.
Pray for a giant snowstorm, November 1st.
The outcome of the election is not going to be something that's going to be decided that night. Yeah. Everybody's talked about it. So now, if it's not that night, if it's not the next week, now we're dragging on a month trying to figure out who the president of the United States is. It's happening.
Could you imagine when you grew up, when you went to elementary school, high school, that this would be America of 2020? That we won't.
Look, I'm an immigrant to this country. I'm I came here for the American dream. I still
Yeah.
love this country. I think it's the greatest country in the world. But it's hurtful to see what's going on right now. And I also think you can't underestimate the effects of COVID. Everybody's stressed out. Everybody's looking for meaning. Everybody's looking to be part of a group. So, nationally, but also internationally, I see it in Israel as well. There's a lot of protests. People are very, very angry at the politicians. There's a lot of raw emotions out there.
Yeah.
It's disheartening, especially when you watch, when you're on social media, and then you see other states that are completely wide open. And you're looking like, what's the date of that picture? I don't see a mask. I see people all at a bar partying. But, okay, how much higher are their numbers that are there? They're not higher? What, are you kidding me? You know what I'm saying? So we don't really know what we're doing right now. You feel like you're being strangled by the government if you live in one of these states that, they're sputtering. They're sputtering and relentless. I know it's a dense population, but a lot of these places they're not going to exist anymore.
Yeah, it's really tough. And I rarely say this, but I feel bad for some of the politicians as well, because they're saying, hey, we have no idea what's going on. We're going to have to make a decision one way or the other. And no matter what we do, people are going to get screwed over. But, everybody thinks they have.
That's the nature of being a cop. That's the nature of being a politician,
Yeah.
It happens,
What's the Teddy Roosevelt man in the arena quote, right?
Yeah.
I can't quote it verbatim, but basically saying that it's the person who's actually doing the work, making the hard choices, that's the person that counts, and all of us can sit on the sidelines and talk shit.
Yeah, and Monday morning quarterback and just say, "Oh, you shouldn't have done it that way."
Right? Yeah.
Speaking of quarterbacking, I got a guy to our show right now into our closing segment. Before we do that, I have to make an announcement. We have a new Patreon subscriber, Bill.
Oh, no kid! Oh my God, we'll eat next month. We'll be able to eat.
That's how good we're doing. When we get a new one, we ring a bell, ding, 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 ding. But to those people that are tuning in, we're asking that if you're really enjoying the show, please subscribe to our Patreon. We have 3 tiers, and you can, we could use the support. We use that money for drugs and alcohol, so it goes into a good cause. No, seriously, man, we've been producing this show on our own and coming out of pocket for a long time now, and we have a lot of followers, and it's not that expensive. Bill will tell you about the tiers.
We have 3 tiers, and they all have something to do with policing. The first tier costs $7 a month, and that's called the bucket. So if you want to be called the bucket, spend $7 a month. For $9 a month, it's called Polish My Rack. That's my medals. All right. And I even have a picture of my rack on the site. That's $9. And the premier site for $11 a month is dipped in butter. And we won't tell you what to dip in butter, but you can imagine. And that costs $11. And Mark and I are doing separate shows on Patreon. Mark does a show called One-on-One with Mark DeMeo, where he's had some really interesting.
Oh, I got a great guest coming up, man. I'm not going to blow it right now, but I have a great guest.
You want to tell us who it is or no?
No, I can't. I just want to lock it in. Make sure we got it on tape first, and then everybody's going to be happy.
This Wednesday, I probably have, and I've had some amazing guests, but I do a show called Real Crime Stories. I have Barbara Butcher, who was a 25-year chief of staff of the New York City Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. So she was the head medical legal investigator. She's been to over 680 homicide scenes. She went to Thailand after the tsunami. She's one of the world-renowned experts on DOA identification. And guess what we're going to talk about? We're going to talk about the Gilgo Beach homicides. So if you missed this, you should just be running to our Patreon right now just to do this show.
I hope you can get her drunk before she comes on too.
I don't think she'll get drunk. But don't forget, I'm not going to blow my own horn. I was a sergeant in Manhattan North Homicide Squad for 10 years. I was in the 2-3 squad in the Detective Bureau for 16 years. So I'm no slouch either. But I'm interviewing Barbara Butcher, who is a world-renowned investigator of death. So this will be an amazing show.
Our guest, Yael Bar Tur, not only is she a digital strategist for law enforcement and in the private sector, and a big fan of Broadway. She's also a reluctant triathlete. And I just want to say I respect that. I've been, you know, the Road Runners Club?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, well, you know, the New York City Marathon?
Mm-hmm.
I've been a unreserved runner for the past 25 years.
Really?
Yeah, if enough people drop out,
you're in.
yeah, if enough people drop out, they call me up. I gotta suit up and come in right away. So,
well, November 1st, let's go.
Every year, about 3. They haven't called yet. They keep getting a lot of runners, but if they have to come up short one year, I've made the obligation. I got to go in. So what I do is I carbo load for the first when the race is 6 months away, just in case.
Yeah. You want to be safe. But honestly, I did it last year for the first time, and I wore my NYPD shirt, and I felt like a rock star. I was like, you know, I felt like a hero for the whole like 16 hours it took me to run the marathon.
That was wonderful. That was good that you did that.
It's a marathon, a bike race, and then you got to swim, right?
Yeah, the other way around.
Okay, so it's
swimming first.
The bike is first.
Swim, bike, run. Swim in the Hudson, so that's a whole.
But you got to be in some unbelievable shape to do that.
No, I make up for it with, you know, beer and ice cream.
Yeah, sure. No, you how many miles you run a week to train for this?
Depends on the race, but so I'm doing a half marathon November 1st, so I did 8 miles yesterday. But you know.
So you can eat whatever you want. You don't even have to consider that you can't have the French fries.
If only that were true.
I've done 2 1/6 marathons over the last 10 years now. Well,
it's never too late.
3 blocks for the bus.
Wait for me. I had a new hip last year. There's no way I'm running any marathon.
So you're good. You can start from scratch now.
Yeah. I got a brand new hip.
I wish I had a new hip. Are you kidding me?
I'm gonna get this thing oiled up.
Bill is a Zumba instructor.
I could see him doing yoga.
Online. He does it online.
Oh my God!
I'm
not limber at all. I'm definitely forget it.
There's a group now that does yoga for cops, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yoga for cops.
It's pretty cool.
Is it a good place to meet the opposite sex? Yoga for cops.
Actually, I think men should all go to yoga because it's only women.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'm the guy. I would never do yoga. I'm the type of guy that goes into. I haven't been to the gym in 6 months. I threw 315 in a bench, bang out 3 reps, and I walk out. That's how I do it. Oh, got it, kid.
You can still bench 315?
No, are you kidding me?
That's I knew. I was like, come on.
Yeah, see, I can barely lift up my couch if I need to clean under it. So.
Well, thank you so much for being our guest, Yael. We really enjoyed having you. It was very, very informative. I did learn a lot, which is rare.
Yael, thank you so much. You were fantastic.
Thank you, guys. Anytime.
You're welcome back anytime. We the best of luck.
That the NYPD hired you. You know.
Thanks.
I can see that.
And we'll talk again soon.
Take care. Bye-bye. Be safe.
Thank you very much.